we continue our review of major sectors of the nation, the focus today is on the National Assembly, and our correspondent Linda Akibe takes a look at the major happenings and events in the nation's legislature in 2018.
In 2018, the National Assembly gave us drama, nail-biting tension, and lots to talk about. One of the most remarkable incidents occurred right here, and that was the barricade of the National Assembly by security operatives.
This is not about APC, this is not about PDP. This is Nigeria versus Muhammadu Buhari. Enough of this running from the actual police. People have been assassinated every day. Police cannot do anything.
News filtered in early in the morning of August 7th that security operatives from the Department of State Service had barricaded the National Assembly, preventing staff, lawmakers, as well as journalists from accessing the Assembly. Hours later, the lawmakers were eventually allowed access. Tensions had been brewing weeks to this point after some legislators from the ruling All Progressives Congress, led by Senate President Bukola Saraki, defected to the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP. The ruling APC condemned the defections and called for the removal of the Senate President. The blockade of a National Assembly, coming amidst APC's calls for the removal of a Senate President, was condemned and led to the immediate sack of DSS boss Lawal Daura. The day after, the Senate President accused the APC of plotting his removal.
The siege was also an act of cowardice by those seeking to carry out an illegal impeachment of leaders of the Senate in flagrant disregard of the law.
The blockade was the boiling point after the defections of legislators, notably the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, creating a situation where, for the first time in the history of the country, the leadership of a National Assembly fell into the hands of the opposition. But nothing was quite as shocking and daring as the snatching of a Senate maze in the full glare of Nigerians. On April 17, unmasked men accompanied embattled lawmaker Senator Ovie Omagege into the Senate chamber and forcefully extracted the maze in the full glare of lawmakers. The Senate had earlier suspended Senator Omagege over remarks he made, insinuating that the amendment of the 2010 Electoral Act, which sets a sequence for general elections, is targeted at President Buhari. Following the theft of the maze, the police picked up Senator Omagege on the day of the incident, and the National Assembly launched an investigation into the matter. The relationship between the National Assembly and the Executive has rarely been smooth sailing, but things got to a head in 2018. President Buhari has rejected over 20 bills sent to him for assent, including the much-anticipated Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, which had been passed after years of failed attempts, and the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which President Buhari rejected 4 times.
The president lost a good opportunity to present himself as a reformer of our electoral process.
The frosty relationship between the National Assembly and the Executive reached a crescendo during President Buhari's presentation of a 2019 appropriation bill.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
It sets the stage for what is a first in the history of the Nigerian parliament, the heckling and booing of the president, which led to an abrupt end of the ceremony.
There's no great speaker in history, in political history, that has not been heckled. From Martin Luther King, history has it that when Martin Luther King was once heckled, it was after he was heckled that he delivered one of the best speeches ever, I Have a Dream. Okay, Harry Truman was severally heckled, Ronald Reagan, recent history, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and even Trump. And of course, even a few weeks ago, Theresa May.
2018 will go down in history as a year where the 8th Assembly passed a record number of legislations. But the acrimonious relationship between the Executive and the National Assembly cast a long shadow over governance in the country. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
We're being joined on the news at 10 by Mr. Adagbo Onoja from the Department of Political Science, Veritas University in Abuja. Mr. Onoja, Merry Christmas and thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, a frosty relationship between the executive and the 8th Assembly. Now, it's been an open secret. What I would ask you is, have we seen it reach its climax in 2018?
Yeah, when you compare it to previous attempts at democratic rule, you could say that sort of thing that, yeah, it came to a climax in 2018 because we've not had a situation whereby secret policemen seize the National Assembly or where the maize is taken away in the manner in which it has been taken. It has been tampered with before, but not in a dramatic manner whereby a member is escorted into the chambers and in the glare of all members is able to do away with the maize, which is the symbol of authority of the presiding officers. So in a sense, we could say it has reached a climax, but it's also possible that we haven't seen anything.
It appears a lot of the issues that made headlines as far as this frosty relationship goes in this outgoing year, the defections, the lockdown, if you will, of the National Assembly were political. Do you think Nigeria, as we are, managing political side of this governance properly?
No, they are not, and that's the major problem. The essential characteristic or the defining feature of politics is the ability to reach consensus and do that in a way that gives everybody something, gives everyone something, you know, so that we call it a negotiated accommodation. That space is not being negotiated. So there is the temptation to resort to force and to resolve problems by use of threats. And that's coming out very clearly in the several instances that were narrated by your reporter. And it's frightening because what it does is that the most significant institution promotioner of democracy is still in disarray. Because unlike the executive, which suffers from homogeneity, because the recruitment in the executive is done by just the president, the Constitution says he must take somebody from each of the states of the Federation, but you could still have a cabinet that's basically homogeneous. The judiciary, on the other hand, is cultic. And I don't mean they are doing bad things there, but you have to be a lawyer, you have to have been trained, you have to have been groomed in the manner they speak and the culture of legalism to be part of the judiciary. That is not what defines the legislature. The legislature is open, it's diverse, it's diffuse, and is able to accommodate so many interests at the same time, thereby reflecting the nation at best. So it's the foremost institution promotioner of democracy, and yet that's where we're having these features.
There are some who believe that this squabble that is going on between the executive and the legislature are actually good for democracy, that is democracy in action. Or do you think it just causes disruption?
No, this is not. This is not squabble between the legislature and the executive. This is a fundamental crisis of elite management of power. The fact that the elite have not been able to put their hands on a constitutive interest in terms of managing the nation in such a way that they can give something for everybody and yet retain the powers that gives them the advantages they enjoy. That's a fundamental problem we're seeing.
We've seen this kind of back and forth between arms of government and other claims, haven't we?
Well, we have, in the old Soviet Union, they even had to shell the parliament. It could reach that portion, but the problems, the crisis, the issue in point must be such that they are fundamental enough to make such conflicts understandable. In our own climb here, what is the issue at stake? Mandarin wars. Party hawks are fighting it, slugging it out. One tendency is trying to outshine the other, and this sort of... So there are no fundamental issues that should warrant what we are witnessing.
Interestingly, all these are coming only about 2 months to the general elections next year. Now, do you foresee any possibility of these arms of government coming together and mending fences?
No, they have lost the ability to come together right from day one. The moment that selection of leadership in the National Assembly, in the Senate occurred, it was clear there were going to be problems because the manner in which the Senate president emerged had ruptured the arrangement of the party. It's not whether he was right or wrong, it's that there had been a rupture. And once you have a rupture, you know you are in trouble. It meant that the Senate president, who is number 3 citizen, who ought to be sitting comfortably in the caucus where these key decisions are taken behind the scene, he was at loggerhead with that very caucus. And it means that for him to survive, he had to be able to constitute an alternative caucus. And so you had 2 caucuses running the show. And the conflict between them is what we have been, what is there in that review, the comprehensive list of fracas, clashes, and that have defined the relationship in the last 4 years.
This will be a very good place to drop the conversation for now, Mr. Onoja. Thank you very much for coming on the news at 10.
You're welcome.
And that's all from Abuja. We'll return you to our Lagos studio where Gimbo is standing by.
Brilliant. Merry Christmas indeed to you as well, Ibrahim Adra. Troops of Operation LAFIYA DOLE have repelled an attack launched by suspected Boko Haram terrorists on a forward operational base at Kukareta in Damaturu local government area of Yobe State. This has been confirmed in a statement by the Theatre Command's spokesperson, Colonel Oyema Wajuku, who says that the terrorists attacked the location at about 6:30 p.m. on Monday, December the 24th. He says that the vigilant troops promptly engaged invaders in a fierce battle, killing several of the terrorists, while 1 soldier was wounded in the encounter. The statement also details another encounter in which troops of 1 division on escort duty along Damaturu-Maiduguri Road fought through an ambush laid by the insurgents. Although the troops engaged the terrorists in a fierce fight and successfully extricated themselves from the ambush, 13 soldiers and a police officer were killed in action. Colonel Nwajuku adds that the clearance operation to pursue and eliminate the terrorist ambush party is still ongoing, while the wounded amongst the security forces are receiving treatment. And when the news at 10 returns, Federal Inland Revenue Service plans to take over properties of companies yet to be remitted, remitting their tax returns. That's on Business News. Join us again.
You first. First Bank.
Welcome now to Business News. The chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Babatunde Fowler, has announced the plans to take over 30 properties linked to companies not paying taxes. Fielding questions from journalists during the ministerial press briefing organized by the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Fowler explains that only 561 out of the 2,000 corporate institutions identified as tax defaulters have made payments. And the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has presented a total of 480 billion naira as budget 2019 budget estimates for the state before the House of Assembly in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. Of that amount, capital expenditure is expected to gulp over 323 billion naira, which while over 122 billion naira is proposed for a recurrent expenditure. The governor also explained that all ongoing projects would be completed as provisions have been made for them in the budget. And Nigeria's present agricultural policies need to be remodeled to take into account the lapse between making of those policies and the various government agencies that will implement them. This is the view of the lead partner at Sustainable Entrepreneurship and Economic Development Initiative, Mr. Celestine Okeke, while speaking with Channels Television on Tuesday. Mr. Okeke identified 2 key areas of agri policy misalignment that could have potential impact on the productivity of smallholder farmers in Nigeria. And major global stock markets are closed today for Christmas break, but Asian stock indexes fell, with the Nikkei down 5%, following heavy losses from U.S. markets on Monday. Here are the closing numbers. And that's all on business news. Merry Christmas, everyone. Back to Gimba Umar.
You first. First Bank.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Minister of Youth and Sports Development insists athletes representing Nigeria will now be paid directly to avoid embezzlement. That's on Sports News. Stay with us.